Hello everyone, my name is Kid with Goggles, and I like the Tin Man. Today is a very important day in our nation's history. It is the birthday of Arizona, my home state, and a place that I hail from. Oh, and it's also Valentine's Day. Because of that, and seeing as how I talk about classics on this channel, I thought I would make a video about 8 great black and white romance films. So before I start talking about the 8 movies that I chose for today's video, I do want to say there won't be any spoilers for any of the movies, but without directly calling out any of the movies, I will say some of the choices today are movies that have sad endings, they have good endings. I'm not only talking about movies that go perfect the whole way through where a guy and a girl, they meet and they fall in love and they stay together in the end. Like, I'm not promising that all of these movies are going to give you that. I won't tell you what movie gives you what, but I'll just say that these are all different kinds of romantic films. Also, this isn't a ranking, rather just a collection of 8 black and white romantic films that I think are awesome. We're kicking the list off with 1937's Make Way for Tomorrow. This movie was directed by Leo McCarey, and it is probably the saddest movie on this list. To give you a brief synopsis, it's about an elderly couple. They have 5 children. The elderly couple, they're in their 70s. They find out that they have to give their house away because they can no longer afford it. The bank takes it away. And so basically the easiest solution is to have one parent live with one child and the other parent live with another child. It's kind of like a reverse divorce where instead of the kids living with different parents, it's like the parents living with different kids. And as you're watching the movie, you get a feel for just how hard it is for this couple who has been married for 50 years to be separated. It really tugs at your heartstrings, and I highly recommend that in the last 10 minutes you have a box of tissues nearby. The next movie I'm going to talk about is from 1938. It is Frank Capra's You Can't Take It With You. The fun thing about You Can't Take It With You is the cast for one. You have James Stewart and Jean Arthur as the 2 leads, but it also has Lionel Barrymore in a really happy role too, opposed to his role as Mr. Potter in Wonderful Life. But you also have Edward Arnold, who is a villain in Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, if a villain is what you want to call him. This guy right here. Hey, and he's in, oh my gosh. There's like half the cast of You Can't Take It With You is right behind me on Mr. Smith. Anyways, it's really about James Stewart's family trying to accept Jean Arthur's family. They both come from very different backgrounds. James Stewart's family is a very formal family and wealthy and very different from Jean Arthur's family, where she has a family of a lot of people. They live in a house with tons of things happening all day and just a lot of crazy characters hail from her home. And so it's fun to see the relationship that ensues from the different backgrounds that they come from.
You're not really going to
It's in my stomach right now. I'm afraid it's got me, Alice.
Not with your
Now it's
mother,
going
you
up
told
and
me.
up and up and up. It's all
No,
over
no,
my
Tom,
body now.
please don't.
Here,
No.
it's right in my throat now. What I can do is fighting to get out. I can't hold it any longer. Here it goes.
The next movie is from 1941. It is Alfred Hitchcock's Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I bet the last thing you expected when clicking on this video was an Alfred Hitchcock romantic comedy. He was the master of suspense, but he was also the master of romance. He made so many great romantic films and so many others that I could talk about in this list, but I want to shed some light on Mr. and Mrs. Smith because I think it is his most underappreciated, underrated film. Apparently, he made the film out of a favor to Carole Lombard. It's a movie that plays out pretty simply. Man and woman get in a fight, they separate, but they still have feelings for each other, and so it's watching the movie as it progresses and trying to get Mr. Smith back with Mrs. Smith. Pretty formulaic, and you think that you're just lost in this screwball comedy. And then you see Alfred Hitchcock's cameo, and you remember, wait, this is an Alfred Hitchcock film. Very against his stereotype, and that's another reason I kind of like it. It's like a breath of fresh air from Hitchcock. He really can't do much wrong. He's even great at making a screwball comedy. So next up I have another James Stewart movie. This is from 1941, directed by Clarence Brown. It is Come Live With Me. Probably the worst title on this list. I just don't like the title. I think it's a strange title for a movie. But when you understand the plot, it makes a little bit more sense. James Stewart is very young in his career. I just really like the character he plays in this movie. He's very awkward, kind of shy, naive. It's fun watching him. Heddy Lamar's super pretty, and she also does a good job too. The movie is about her trying to claim citizenship in the US, and so she has a plan that if she gets married to James Stewart and he poses as her husband, then she'll be able to stay in the US. But as you can imagine, as they pretend to fall in love, sparks start flying, and I'll leave it at that. But I will add one more thing. The ending to this movie is so adorable. I had a huge smile on my face. It's very meta. Let's just say Shrek and Fiona weren't the first couple to look at the camera before they kiss. So we're halfway through the list, and instead of going right into the next 4 movies, I want to take a quick break and tell you about a Twilight Zone episode that is a great romantic episode if you're interested. So the episode is called The Trade-Ins, and it's about this elderly couple, and they come into what seems like a doctor's office or this organization where they perform a procedure where they can make an elderly person young again. However, when they come in to have the procedure done to both of them, they find out that they can only afford for one procedure to take place, and so in other words, both of them can't have the procedure done on them. They can only choose one of them to get it. I won't say much more than that, but if you watch the episode, you will see it has a lot of heart to it. The love between the couple is so adorable, and this one just brings a big smile on my face, and it reminds me of the hopeless romantic that I am. Okay, jumping back into the movie portion of this video, the next movie brings us to the 50s. It is Fred Zinnemann's From Here to Eternity. It stars Montgomery Clift, Burt Reynolds, Deborah Kerr, Donna Reed, Frank Sinatra, Ernest Borgnine. Like, the list keeps going on. It's a really good movie with a really great cast. It won 8 Oscars, 2 of which were for acting categories, and that's excluding the other 3 acting categories that it lost for. And it even won Best Picture, if that kind of thing matters to you.
And the winner is From Here to Eternity.
The thing that I really like about From Here to Eternity is Montgomery Clift's character, Pruitt. He has just been stationed to this specific area in Hawaii, and he's a very strong-willed person, but strong-willed in a good way, where people are trying to boss him around and make him do things that he doesn't want to do, and he stays firm, he's resolute with his decision, and I really like that about him. There are several stories happening. Pruitt's is definitely the main one. Through it all, there are 2 love stories that you follow, one of which is the iconic shot that you've seen with Burt Lancaster and Deborah Kerr kissing as the waves crash against them. I didn't plan to reference Shrek 2 different times in this video, but if you haven't seen From Here to Eternity, you've probably seen the iconic shot in Shrek 2. But beyond the romance, it also is just a really good movie about war and the sad things that come from it and the trial it was to serve in the army in World War II. The next movie is Delbert Mann's Marty. This movie came out in 1955. It stars Ernest Borgnine, and funny enough, it also won Best Picture. I know I said that I'm not ranking these movies, but if I had to choose a favorite of the list, this probably would be it. I love Marty because it's a very simple story, and yet somehow it's still very effective at getting its job accomplished. The movie follows Marty, a man that's 34 years old, he's a butcher, he lives with his mom still, and people are always nagging at him, why aren't you married yet? Why aren't you married yet? He's really hard on himself too, after all these people are always pressuring him, and he hasn't been married yet, and so it starts to get to his head, and he's kind of at the point where he's just given up on love.
I'm just a fat little man, a fat, ugly man.
You not ugly.
I'm ugly, I'm ugly, I'm ugly.
Marty.
Ma, leave me alone!
That is until he attends a dance reluctantly and meets a woman that is not too different from him. Hey, wait a second. I'll be right back. The penultimate movie on this list is 1960's The Apartment, directed by Billy Wilder. The Apartment is a movie that, yes, it's black and white, yes, it was made in 1960, however, it feels so ahead of its time. We follow Jack Lemmon as he works a very boring office job, and he gets mixed up into this deal where people that he works with, they use his home to go on dates and see women that they shouldn't be seeing. They're basically having affairs in his home. But Jack Lemmon, as a character, he's kind of a pushover. He has this crush on Shirley MacLaine's character, and the whole movie he's crushing on her, he wants to be with her, but it's just hard to build up the courage to actually talk to her and make a move. But as you can imagine, it is a romantic film, and so I'll just let you watch it there. But another pro of this movie is watching the character growth that Jack Lemmon's character goes throughout the runtime. He feels like a brand new person by the end of the movie, and it's very fun to see his growth. This also has one of the most satisfying endings ever. And the last movie I'm going to talk about today is 1965's A Patch of Blue, directed by Guy Green. A Patch of Blue stars Sidney Poitier and Elizabeth Hartman. It is a very special love story. It's very important and just neat to see for this time of history. Elizabeth Hartman plays this uneducated blind girl who is living in an abusive home. Her family is poor, but she likes to go to the park, and one day while she's at the park, she meets Sidney Poitier, who is a very kind gentleman right from the start. However, because she is blind, she does not realize that he is African American, which at this time of history is a pretty big deal to have an interracial couple. As the movie movie goes on, you see that she starts falling in love with him, and he wants to tell her who he really is, but he never really finds the right moment or the right opportunity because he starts falling in love with her too. And I think he's a little worried of what will happen when he does tell her. Really, if nothing else, he is kind of her savior. He is helping her through this awful living situation that she has, and that's really the most special thing about this one. So those are 8 great black and white romance films. I realize that there are so many other great black and white romance films out there, and this isn't me discrediting any of them. I just wanted to make a video about movies that are well known and some of the lesser known ones as well. Thank you all for watching. Have a happy Valentine's Day.